Building a QuickBooks-style database for music using Microsoft Excel. This time constructing an expanded unit of time input by distance measuring from the Tonic. So get ready and some coffee because we're about to excel at automating Excel. Here we are in Excel. If you don't have access to this workbook, that's okay because we basically built this from a blank worksheet but started in a prior presentation. So if you want to build this entire worksheet from a blank sheet, you could begin back there or just follow along, possibly building the part of the table that we're currently working on. If you do have access to it though, 4 tabs down below: example, accounting practice, blank, example, answer key, accounting analogy to the accounting system, practice tab, having pre-formatted cells so you could practice the practice problem with less Excel formatting. But if you don't have any of that, that's okay. We will continue to work on the blank tab, where we started with a blank worksheet, continuing in essence in the blank part of the worksheet. We've been putting together our adjustable table so that we can then use this ultimately to pull into our worksheet all the way to the right. Just a quick recap in that, where we have the x-axis in half steps, the y-axis in circle of force and fist, and we're mapping on the formula whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, in such a way that we could basically visualize this being copied and pasted through the 12 different collections of notes, either by going ticks to the left, ticks up, ticks to the right, or down. We'll talk more about that later. But we want to be able to map onto this combinations of points, those points being represented by absolute points, notes, or relative points to the collection, modal points. And now we're working on distance notation, which requires another, point of measurement, because within any collection of notes, we need to measure from a particular point within that collection, remembering that as we measure, we're really only thinking of things going clockwise, right? So we're looking at a point and going distance from that point, and the difference between the measurements that we're kind of using are scale degrees counts the point that you're on, versus a normal measurement, which I think would be an improved system. You don't count the number that you're on or make this foot that you're on the first foot, the 1, right? Okay, so that's going to be our project. We've been putting together then our table to be able to go through the different modal constructions here, or the different names for our distance formulas. So in other words, I can look at the distance by interval. So now this is a table that's fixed. It's not rotating by the collection or the modal center. It's just listing out all of the different distance notations and all the different variations by having just the interval or the mode, or we can have the mode and half steps in front of it. We can have the interval short name, and then these long and shorts in there. Okay, now as I do that, let's just look at the intervals for now. I'd like to have these columns in play and not be things that are going to get messed up or adjust as I change things, because these should always be basically the same. So now that I have all my formulas in place, it was a little bit easier for me to copy through all these formulas. What I'm going to do now is just make these bits kind of hard-coded or not changing as I change this over here. So I'm going to say this is going to be equal to, and let's pull down, say, from right here. And then I could just copy and paste it down so that these formulas do not change. So I'm going to say that equals that one. I'm going to copy that down. Boom. And then I'm going to copy this and I'll paste it here. And then I'll paste it here. Notice the formatting is a little different because this was using the number format is taking place, which is probably better anyways. There, and then we'll paste it here, and then we'll paste it here, and then we'll paste it here, and then we'll paste it here. Okay, so there's going to be our system. So as I X out these items, there's no change to those columns. Okay, so before we do the master grid, remember that we also had this kind of data input for this grid. So we have the DAW over here where we have the x-axis is time, the The y-axis is the notes. And then for each unit of time, instead of viewing the entire master grid, which might be a little bit overwhelming, it might be easier sometimes to view the grid by just having 12 steps to the right and then possibly octaves down below it, and then be able to rotate our two modal dials between the mode center and the collection of notes. So if I change the collection of notes over here to 4 o'clock, so now I have the Ionian. If I change my dial, Ionian is C. In other words, if I change my dial to 1, now that's going to bring the Ionian up front. If I change the mode dial to 3, now the Phrygian is up front. So this is one way, and then I would think it might be even better just to have a few rows that stack the octaves of like C4, C3 instead of the whole thing down this way, but for all, but we're going to keep it the way it is here for our purposes. So that's going to be the first kind of data input that I would think would be useful before we go to the full grid that could then be used to map on any instrument. So then let's bring this back to here and bring it to 1, our most common view most likely. And so we did this and then mapped on the modal points. So Ionian, Lydian, or you might think of them as the Nashville numbers. We did it over here again so that we could give you a different color system based on the letter. Now, in a DAW system, like in a database, you could probably combine these two together and toggle between this and this. But in Excel, I'm just going to show it transposed, each of them, so that I can map it out. And then we're going to do one more of these this time, but this time the more complex one, map out this information. So now I want to see it not by points, but by distance. So we have the same notes. In this case, we have a C, we have a G, we have an F for the collection of notes around the key of C. C is Ionian, in other words. But I might want to show them then the distance as it relates to whatever I'm thinking of my modal center. Right now it's Ionian. Therefore, these three this would be 0 notes away, 0 half steps away, a perfect first. And then this one would be the distance from the Ionian to the Lydian, which is like 4 modal half steps or a fifth scale degree. Right. And then this one is perfect fifth, 7 notes away. And then this one goes to the G, which would be, in this case, the Mixolydian. So that would be, this one would be 4 modal half steps away. This would be 3 modal half steps, a fourth away, which would be a perfect fourth, 5 notes away, right? And then this one would be a G. Okay. So we can measure, so I'd like to populate this area then by distance now. Okay. So I'm going to so you would think in a database, I would be able to toggle between those three again, but I'm going to do another one over here just to show that. So I'm going to insert. I want it on this side so I can have all these three together. I want these dials to be in one place, and I would like to have this dial area to be underneath here. So then when I go over here, I can choose to use this one, or the next one right next to it, and have all of my controls, my control pad on the left-hand side. And then I can always hide anything. I could take this and right-click and hide it if I wanted to just visualize what I want to visualize. All right. So let's go over here and then say I'm going to insert some columns. I'll just go out to, I don't know, around here, right-click and insert. I'll make them a little bit larger just so I have some room. But then I'm just going to copy this bit. I'm going to go from the skinny on out to here, copy, and paste that right here. Paste, and there we have it. Now, hopefully I have enough room, so I have more than enough room, so I didn't uncover anything over here. Now I could take this skinny and just have the same size. I'll format paint it right there. Delete the added columns, these 4, right-click and delete. Okay, now this, so this control pad that I have over here, I'd like to have it on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this. I'm going to cut that. I hit Control X, not Control C, or you could say right click and cut it. And then I'm going to put it over here and right click and paste. So there's my control pad on this side. Why do I want it on this side? Because then I can hide this if I wanted to just visualize this bit and have the control pad right next to it. Right click and hide. There I have it there. I can right click and hide this. Undo. Hide, not insert, hide. And then if I wanted to see it right next to this one, I can obviously take this and hide it as well. So now I have my control pad kind of on this side. So if I wanted to see this table populating the modes, there I have it there, and it changes the table. Now, it'll also change this area once I fix it, right? Is at least the hope. Okay. So to do this, we're gonna try to come up with a fairly complicated formula, and I'm going to replace, first of all, I'm gonna replace this area right there with the formula. So I'm gonna delete this bit. I don't think we need those, although maybe it'll be good to have those. Let's put another. I want to put another row down here. And I know I'm kind of eating into the space up top on the top of the grid, so I should move this down, but that's okay. We'll keep it where it's at. So let's add another row, which is going to be by distance, and this is going to be the driving column from here. So I'm going to delete everything that's in here, and we will then populate in here. I'm also going to delete, for now, at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down. And I'm going to try to build this complicated formula in a way that will make it hopefully as easy as possible. Okay, so first of all, this cell right here should be referencing, this cell is going to be referencing the start point from a modal perspective. And that looks correct. And then everything else, I think that's populating properly. I think the X lookups hopefully are working properly. It looks like they are. And then our notes look to be correct. So that's the only thing we have to adjust there. So if I change this to like 6 o'clock, then now this is a D, it's the Ionian. That makes sense. And if I go back to 4 o'clock and I change this to 5 o'clock just to test it, 5, 6, okay, I think everything is working. Okay, good. So now I'm going to make this go back to 4 o'clock. Okay. So then, so what I want to do is pull in from this table now. Now, how exactly is this going to work? So I need a formula that is going to be pulling in the proper distance notation. Let's make this not 4. Let's make that a 1. And so to do that, I want to say, check the modal point. That's the point we're measuring from. And that's going to be in this cell, which is also, I can just pull it from that cell. It'll be a little bit easier. Find that cell and then look in this table to see, where it is located, because there it is. That's going to be the Ionian. So if that is a 1, if that cell's a 1, we're from the Ionian's perspective. It doesn't matter which collection of notes we're in right now, because I'm just looking at the Ionian's perspective for the purposes of this table, and then pull in this information, right? If it's a 2, I want you to go over here, look at the distance notation, and then pull in this information. If it's from the perspective of the Phrygian, you have to look here and then compare this and then pull in here. So we have the easiest way to think about this, although it might be a little bit longer of a formula, but I think it's the cleanest way to think about it, is we have if logics combined with an X lookup. Meaning I'm going to say, if it's the Ionian, then I want you to do an X lookup and look up this number and return this value. If it's a Dorian or a 2, I want you to look up the Dorian to see it's a 2 and then look up this column and return this value. If it's a 5, I want you to say the 5 is right there, be Mixolydian. Then I want you to look up this column, XLOOKUP, and return this. So in essence, we have a series of 7 XIF logics and then XLOOKUP logic. So that would be the, now there's some other ways that you can do this. I've experimented with them, but I think this is like the most logical way to build the formula. And I want to kind of build it in such a way that we can see exactly what's happening. So what I'll do is I'll make 7 if logics one by one, and then I'll copy them together and put them into the master grid at top so we can combine this long formula together. So first off, I'm going to say equals if tab. We're going to say if this cell is equal to 1. Now that cell is dependent on this cell, which is the modal center. So that's going to be the thing that we're measuring everything else from. So we're going to say if that is equal to 1, then what do we want you to do? Then I want you to look up this column, because that's the Ionian column. There's the 1. That's the Ionian column. And then, wait a sec. Then what I want you to do, I want you to do an XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP, the lookup value, I want you to look up this value, that 1 again, comma, and I want you to look it up this time, not up here, but right there, and in that column, and then comma, return, the return array will be this column. So we're going to say if it's a 1, because that's going to tell us it's the Ionian, look up the Ionian column from the Ionian's perspective and return the distance for it. So we'll close that up and see if that works first. So there we have it. Now I'm going to remove the mode just so it's not quite so long. So there we have it. So it looked up this, it returned the P1. Let's double click on it again, and let's see if we can clean this up so I can copy it across and test it. Now this one, I'm only going to copy this formula to the right. So this should be okay to copy. Well, actually, no, this one needs to be absolute, F4, because I'm always going to be looking up this 1 right here. And then this one, it's looking up the same value, but this time I'm looking it up because I'm trying to compare the value over here. So that one needs to shift to the right. That one needs to shift to the right as I copy it to the right. But so I could just say leave it alone because I'm not going to copy it down. And then this one is going to be F4, 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 meaning $ before the letter and number, because those are going to be the arrays that we want to be standard. Okay, so I'm going to say enter, and then I'm going to copy that across. And so now it's pulling in what we would expect. I'm going to get rid of right now, at least for the conditional formatting, because it's going to make it clear from the selected cells. I think I don't need it on this whole thing. I need to clear the formatting from. So let's take this whole thing and then clear from selected cells. Okay. All right. So it looks like it's doing what we would expect. So right. So this column, this row, if I flipped it vertically, would be this column. Great. But if I change this to a 2, then nothing works and it gets thrown off. So let's double click on this, and I want to go to the end of it and say, okay, if the value is true, that's it. Let's go comma. What if it's false? I'm just going to put a double quotes. So if it's false, then do nothing, right? So I'm going to say enter, and then I can copy that across. So now at least doesn't have anything in it. So it's going to be there if I have a 1, but it doesn't know what to do if it's a 2. Now let's fix the bit if it's a 2. So I'm going to put a 2, and I'm going to put this below it so I can work at this 1 at a time. Now, to copy it, I'm not going to copy it here and then paste it, because then that'll change the relative references. I'm going to double click on it, select it, copy it, enter, and then paste it. So now I have the same formula and I can adjust it. All I need to do is make this a 2. And I say if that's a 2, then basically do the same thing. So if that's a 2, meaning this cell is a 2, then X look up this cell. That cell is then going to move to the right when I copy it to the right and look it up in this case, we need it in the other table, right? So we need it in this table. So I'll just move those to this side and then enter. So now I'm going to copy this across this way. And so now that looks correct, right? So now I have this column, right, going down this way. So I think that is correct. If I bring this back to a 1, the first column appears. If I bring it to a 2, the second column appears. Now I want to do it for a 3. So I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to copy this whole thing again. I'm going to put it down here. Boom. And I'm going to change this to a 3. Double click and say, if this is a 3, then I want you to pick up the 3 columns. Boom, boom. And enter. So then I'm going to copy this across, and you can see I'm just going to combine these again together once we get to 7. So now the 3 column looks like it's mapping out properly to this distance. Okay, now by the way, it'll look different if I use mode distance, because it might look like it's exactly the same for each of them, because now it's the P column, the Phrygian column, just so you could see it. So then we're going to say, okay, let's double click on there and repeat the process. I'm going to copy that and paste it here, double click on it and say, if it's a 4, otherwise known as Lydian, then I'm going to pull these over to the Lydian columns. Lydian. Okay. And then enter. I'll make that a 4 to test it. So there we have it. We'll copy that to the right. Then I'm going to double click on it again, and I'm going to copy this whole thing and paste it here, make that a 5. I know this is kind of tedious, but double click on it, make that for a 5. And then I'm going to move this to the right, to the Mixolydian, and then enter. And then I'll copy that to the right. Okay, 2 more times. So let's double click on this, copy it, put it down here, make this a 6, and then double click on this and make that a 6. And then I'm going to pull this to the right to 6 and 6, Aeolian. Okay, and then enter, and then I'll copy that across. And then one more time, double click on this. I'm going to copy this, put it here, and make this a 7. Double click, make that a 7. If that is a 7, then I want to pull this over to the Locrian column. So hopefully I've got all of that correct. And so now it's just like, okay, now I just need to stack these formulas on top of each other. So let's bring this back to a 1. So there's the 1. So I'm gonna double click on this. This looks good. So see where it says if it's false, instead of just putting a blank there, I'm gonna embed the next if. So if it's not a 1, then check if it's a 2. If it's not a 2, check if it's a 3, right? So I'm gonna double click on this one, this whole thing. I'm just gonna copy, not with the equal, but everything except the equal. Copy, enter, double click. And then I'm going to replace this bit with that whole thing, right? So if it's a 2, then do that. So let's change this to a 2. And there it is. So now I'm going to copy that across. Boom. So that looks right. Okay, so what if it's a 3? So if this is a 3, then I have this one. So I'm going to double click on that one. I'm going to copy that whole thing. Copy. Double click up here. And where I have those double quotes, I'm just going to replace that with that one. Boom. If it's a 3, do that. Okay, that looks good. Copy that across. And then, okay, and then what if it's a 4? Boom. Here's that one. Double click on this one. If, I'm just going to copy that whole thing, enter, double click here, replace the double quotes. If it's a 4, do that. Boom. Copy that across. And then make it a 5. There's the 5. Double click on this one. So there's the if. Copy that across. Enter. Double click up here. Replace the double quotes with that. Boom. It's a 5. Do that. Boom. Copy that across. Make this a 6. Double click. And copy this bit. Enter. Double click. And then put that on the double quotes. Do that. Boom. Copy it across. Okay. If it's a 7, then I'll double click on this. Why didn't I copy this one across before? That looks right. So I'll double click on that. Copy it. Enter. Double click and paste. Boom. All right. So there we have it. So now we've got our headers up there. So that's great. So now I have the ability to see this by this nodal point up top, and if I and I can toggle between them, right? So now I can add whatever format I want, mode or short interval, and I might want to have the half step as well. Right, and I can do and then whatever I turn on up there, I would like it to then populate down here. So what this is doing is it's looking up if this equals double quote then X lookup. So it's going to X lookup. This is the formula we had before, and then X lookup that. And then array, and then the return array is here. So that return array, all I need to do is change that to be picking up this cell, which is going to be the 5. Change that 2 to a 5. Boom. So now it's picking up that one, right? So now I can copy that all the way across. And so now it's returning to us the distance notation. I'm just going to copy this all the way across. I'm going to copy it up to here. And then copy it down to all the way down. Okay, so what this is doing is it's pulling in, it's saying, if I entered this in the DAW, and I said that I played this C, this G, and this F in those octaves, I'm labeling it here by Ionian, Mixolydian, and Lydian, and then I'm pulling it over here, and I'm visualizing it now from a distance notation with the modal center at Locrian. If I make the modal center like the Ionian, right? Now the Ionian is here, so that C is now an Ionian, right? The G is up here, is now a 7-note away perfect 5th, and the F is a 5-note away perfect 4th, right? If I want to see it in modal half steps, maybe I do modal half steps and, so now it's a perfect first Ionian 0, right? 0 modal half step. It'd be a perfect 4th Ionian 3rd modal half step. It'd be a perfect 5th Ionian 4th modal half step, right? And then if you want to put the half steps in there, then you can to try to compare everything, right? It's a 0. It's kind of too long, but it's a 0-note away perfect 5th Ionian 4th, right? It's a 0-note away perfect 4th Ionian 3rd. Okay, so the next thing that would be interesting here is the next thing we'll do is we'll try to come up with a color coding for this based on distance. So now I have a color coding by point, I have a color coding by modal relationship, and then I can do a color coding by distance notation. So we'll do that next time, so that then I can start to visualize everything by color. And if you use absolute colors as I'm doing here, then you could actually name pretty much everything, the whole system, by color. Like if you just use, it's still naming it because you would learn the color names. But if you learned the specific color names, you can explain exactly what you're doing by just naming the colors, for the most part. And then what we will do is we'll use this to build our 12 by 12 X table, which will then allow us to pull it into our master grid over here. And then ultimately, I'm thinking these controls on the master grid are gonna go under here, right? Why? Because then, well, let me show you. Let's actually do that right now. Let's now that I have this, I'm gonna pull these controls. I'm gonna cut this, Control X, right click and cut, and then we'll put this over here. Boom. So now all my controls are here. Now these controls are kind of useless with this table, but see, if I unhide this, right click, unhide, now all of my controls are kind of here, and I have them in one place. And I can use what I need for this table if I want to look at it this way, changing the modal center and collection, or I can hide these and use it to look at this table. Hide. Oh, wait a sec. Hide. What did I do there? Hide. Or I could, and so now they're next to that one, or I can use it to hide and look at this, hide just to look at my table over here, my relationships, or I can take this whole thing and bring it all the way out, just hide all this stuff. All this stuff is like the underneath stuff, and I could just hide all that till I get to here, right click and hide. So now I have my controls, all of my controls in one spot right next to this. Everything that's hidden is kind of background information. So that works pretty well from like an Excel worksheet standpoint. Not exactly how you would think of a database, but pretty useful here. So ultimately, what I'd like to be able to do then is use these controls now, because these controls now change the modal center, but that doesn't do anything yet, and they change the collection. So here, this is changing the collection, and then ultimately, I would like to be able to select distance, turn on the distance notation, and then be able to add the distance, meaning, remove this and add the distance. So here's my table of notes, note number. So I could remove this and have a note number or note letter and so on. I'd like to have another one down here, which gives me then the distance, and then be able to change the distance notations that we would like to have. And maybe I should rearrange these, so right now we'll bring it back to here. And then, so note letter and mode number. Okay. And so let's go ahead and I'm going to select these items and right click and unhide. Okay. And then I don't think I need these two columns anymore. Let's remove those, right click and delete. And the skinny, there's two skinnies. We'll right click a skinny. It's getting long. We got to keep it clean. Keep it clean. I think everything is working properly. All right. So that's what we'll do next time.